If you're over 60, there's a fruit sitting in your kitchen that may seem perfectly harmless, perhaps even healthy. It's bright, tart, and often hailed as the perfect way to start the day. But for thousands of adults in their 60s, 70s, and beyond, that glass of grapefruit juice may be quietly sabotaging their health, specifically their heart. I've seen it too many times in my practice. Patients who genuinely care about their health, who wake up each morning and choose what they believe is right. They take their medications on time. They walk. They avoid processed snacks. And they reach for grapefruit, thinking it's one of the best choices they can make. But the truth is more complicated and far more dangerous. The problem with grapefruit isn't in its vitamins or its refreshing tang. It lies in how it interacts with your body's ability to process medications, particularly the kinds commonly prescribed for heart disease, high blood pressure, and cholesterol. Grapefruit contains compounds called furanocoumarins. These natural chemicals inhibit an important enzyme in your liver known as CYP3A4. This enzyme is critical because it helps your body metabolize many medications. When that pathway is blocked, the levels of certain drugs like statins, calcium channel blockers, and antiarrhythmics can rise dangerously in your bloodstream. Imagine this. Your liver is like a filtration plant, carefully processing and eliminating excess substances, including medications. Now, imagine that grapefruit shuts down a key gate in that plant. The drugs you took, maybe your simvastatin, your amlodipine, can no longer exit efficiently. Instead, they accumulate silently, day after day. You don't feel anything at first, but over time, your blood pressure may drop too low, your heartbeat may become irregular, and your muscles may begin to ache or weaken due to toxicity. And all the while, you're thinking you're doing something good for your heart. Let me share the story of one of my patients, Mr. Gerald, a 74-year-old retired engineer from Indiana. He was a man of routines, deeply disciplined after surviving a bypass surgery. Every morning, like clockwork, he walked 3 miles, took his medications with a full glass of water, and drank freshly squeezed grapefruit juice. "It's part of my heart cleanse," he once told me, smiling proudly. But that cleanse nearly sent him back to the hospital. He began experiencing dizziness, deep fatigue, and muscle cramping. His labs revealed his statin levels were double what they should have been. His blood pressure medication was lingering far too long in his system. What caused it? That one glass of juice each morning. He wasn't reckless. He wasn't ignoring his doctor's orders. He was simply unaware that something as innocent as a fruit could interfere so dramatically with his medications. Once we removed the grapefruit from his diet and adjusted his dosages, his symptoms vanished within days. But what stayed with him was the realization that healthy choices must be age-appropriate and medicine-aware. This isn't about blaming grapefruit. It's about understanding your body in its current stage of life. After 60, your metabolism slows. Your liver doesn't work with the same efficiency. The margin for error narrows. What was once safe or even beneficial at 40 can become dangerous at 70. Grapefruit doesn't come with a warning label, but perhaps it should, at least for those of us on prescription drugs. So how do you know if this applies to you? If you're taking any kind of medication for blood pressure, cholesterol, heart rhythm, or even anxiety, it's time to have a conversation with your doctor or your pharmacist. Don't rely on memory, and don't assume that natural means safe. Nature can be potent, and potency without awareness is risk. Even a small glass of juice, consumed daily, can become a chemical trigger in a body already navigating multiple prescriptions and slower organ function. And unfortunately, very few physicians or nutritionists think to warn patients about grapefruit unless something goes wrong. I've seen patients with arrhythmias, muscle breakdown, even liver dysfunction, and none of them suspected their fruit bowl. You may be asking, what else in my kitchen could be hurting me? That's the right question. If grapefruit, a fruit widely considered healthy, can quietly interfere with your heart medications, then what other fruits might be causing damage without your knowledge? We'll get to those. But first, take this to heart. The choices you make each morning, especially after age 60, carry more weight than ever. Your body is different now, slower to process, more reactive, less forgiving. That doesn't mean you have to live in fear. It means you must live with precision, awareness, and the kind of wisdom that only comes with experience. So if you or a loved one is over 60 and taking prescription medications, especially for the heart, it's time to reconsider the grapefruit. Not because it's evil, but because your body deserves better protection now than ever before. Let's move on to the next fruit. One that looks innocent and comforting, but may be flooding your system with a mineral that, when left unchecked, can lead to a very different kind of cardiac chaos. For most of our lives, bananas have been a symbol of health. They're soft, portable, easy to digest, and rich in potassium, a mineral, often praised for its role in lowering blood pressure and supporting heart function. If you're over 60, chances are someone has told you, eat a banana a day, it's good for your heart. And for many years, that advice held true. But as we age, the way our bodies handle nutrients changes, often in ways that are invisible until they become dangerous. And potassium, the very mineral we once relied on, can turn from friend to foe. Let me be clear, potassium is vital. It helps regulate the heartbeat, supports nerve function, and plays a role in fluid balance. Without enough of it, muscles cramp, blood pressure rises, and fatigue sets in. But when there's too much potassium in the bloodstream, a condition known as hyperkalemia can disrupt the electrical signals that keep your heart beating in rhythm. 1 minute, you feel fine. The next, you're dizzy, weak, or waking up in an emergency room with a diagnosis you never saw coming. This happens more often than you might think, especially among older adults who are trying to do everything right. I've treated patients who carefully followed all the rules, exercised regularly, took their medications faithfully, avoided processed foods, and still found themselves in cardiac danger. Why? Because they didn't know that the medications they were taking and the fruit they were eating were quietly working against each other. Take, for example, Mrs. Connie Harper, a 76-year-old widow from Ohio. She came to my clinic after fainting at her local grocery store. It wasn't her first dizzy spell, but this time, she lost consciousness. Her heart was found to be in ventricular arrhythmia, dangerous and potentially fatal irregular rhythm. When I met her a few days later, she was confused and anxious. "I don't eat junk, doctor," she told me. "I walk every day. I don't touch salt. I take my medication like clockwork. All I eat are my bananas 3 a day, every day. That's my treat." Connie was doing everything she believed was healthy, but no one had told her that bananas are among the most potassium-dense fruits you can eat. Each medium banana contains about 400 to 450 milligrams of potassium. That's fine for a healthy 30-year-old. But Connie's kidneys weren't as efficient as they once were. On top of that, she was taking lisinoprolol, ACE inhibitor known to raise potassium levels. Her body simply couldn't process the load. The result was a slow, steady buildup of potassium in her blood, and eventually, her heart could no longer keep pace. We adjusted her medication, reduced her banana intake to just once or twice a week, and started monitoring her potassium levels regularly. Her symptoms resolved, and she felt more in control. But what stayed with her was the shock. "I thought I was doing everything right," she said. And in many ways, she was. But what she didn't have, what so many seniors don't have, is the updated knowledge that your body at 70 isn't the same as your body at 40. Potassium is one of those nutrients that requires balance. And after 60, that balance becomes more delicate. The kidneys play a crucial role in clearing excess potassium from the bloodstream. And as they slow down with age, even a little too much can become a lot. If you're also on medications that affect potassium like ARBs, such as losartan, potassium-sparing diuretics, like spironolactone, or supplements your margin for error shrinks dramatically. The symptoms of too much potassium aren't always dramatic. You might feel a little more tired than usual. You might notice muscle weakness or a strange flutter in your chest. You might blame it on age, or stress, or dehydration. But inside, your heart may be struggling to keep its rhythm. And the scary part? That struggle can become life-threatening in a matter of moments. I always tell my patients, it's not about fear. It's about respect. Respect for your age, respect for your medications, and most importantly, respect for how much your body has changed. Bananas aren't bad. But, like all foods, they must be understood in the context of your current health. What once gave you strength can now overwhelm your system, not with pain, but with silence. So if you're over 60 and taking medication for high blood pressure, heart disease, or kidney function, ask your doctor about potassium. Don't assume that just because something is natural, it's automatically safe. Nature is powerful, but unchecked, that power can be dangerous. Get your potassium levels checked regularly. Pay attention to small changes in how you feel, especially fatigue, muscle weakness, or irregular heartbeats. And most importantly, don't fall into the trap of thinking more is better. That logic may have worked in your 30s, but in your 70s, it can land you in the hospital. Even something as simple as a banana at breakfast can bring your heart closer to the edge. And if that fruit gentle, familiar, and widely recommended can do that, what about the sweeter, sugar-rich fruits that spike your blood sugar and stir up inflammation? Let's take a closer look. There's something undeniably joyful about a ripe mango. Its golden flesh, rich scent, and tropical sweetness can transport you back to memories of summer, vacations, and carefree moments. For many older adults, mangoes feel like a reward cleaner than dessert, healthier than candy, and naturally comforting. But for hearts over 60, that indulgence may carry a cost you've never considered. Mangoes are rich in flavor, and yes, they do contain vitamins, antioxidants, and fiber. But they also come with a very high glycemic load measure of how much a food raises your blood sugar. And if you're over 60, especially with a history of prediabetes, diabetes, or cardiovascular disease, that spike in blood sugar can quietly set off a chain reaction inside your body, one that confuses your metabolism and places strain on your heart. After 60, our bodies don't process sugar the way they once did. The pancreas produces less insulin, our cells become more resistant to its effects, and sugar begins to linger longer in the bloodstream. It doesn't just sit there. It attaches to the lining of arteries. It feeds inflammation. It stiffens blood vessels and disrupts the delicate balance of hormones that control fluid, blood pressure, and heart rhythm. This isn't theoretical. I've seen it firsthand. One of my patients, Mr. Donald Mays, was a 69-year-old Vietnam veteran from Florida. He had recently lost 15 pounds, walked daily, and prided himself on giving up soda and processed sweets. But he came to my clinic with chest tightness and extreme fatigue. His A1C measure of long-term blood sugar had quietly crept into diabetic territory. His blood pressure readings were erratic. His energy was gone. He couldn't understand it. "I don't eat sugar anymore," he told me. "I snack on fruit, mostly mangoes, sometimes fresh, sometimes dried. They help with cravings. They feel clean." But what he didn't know was that the sugar in those mangoes, though natural, was hitting his bloodstream like a freight train. One medium mango contains over 45 grams of sugar more than a can of soda. Dried mango? Even worse. No fiber, no water, just concentrated fructose that absorbs fast and hits hard. His body, already struggling with insulin resistance, couldn't keep up. The result was metabolic confusion and a heart that was working harder than it needed to without him even knowing it. We cut back his mango intake, switched to lower glycemic fruits like berries, and focused on more balanced snacks, Greek yogurt, nut butters, and small apple slices. Within weeks, his energy returned. His heart symptoms eased. His A1C stabilized. But he told me later, "I never thought fruit could act like sugar. But I guess sugar is sugar, no matter how pretty it looks." And he was right. The truth is, your heart doesn't know the difference between sugar from candy and sugar from fruit. It just reacts to the load. And as we age, our tolerance shrinks. What your heart could handle at 40, it may struggle with at 70. Mangoes, with their tropical charm, feel wholesome. But for older adults especially, those on blood pressure medications, blood sugar treatments, or who already experience swelling, fatigue, or erratic heartbeats, they can be a silent threat. A spike in blood sugar isn't just about diabetes. It's about what happens next. Inflammation, fluid retention, hormonal shifts, all of which place your heart under added pressure. I recall another Kasea woman in her early 70s who loved making smoothies with mangoes and bananas. She thought it was a health habit. But her mornings would leave her drained, foggy, and swollen. Once we adjusted her smoothie ingredients and reduced the sugar content, her symptoms resolved. What felt like a step toward wellness had actually been a step toward imbalance. You don't need to fear mangoes. You need to understand them. Eating one occasionally, as part of a balanced meal, with protein and fiber to slow absorption, is very different from snacking on them daily or drinking them in juice or smoothie form. The delivery matters. The context matters. And after 60, those details make all the difference. If you've been replacing processed sweets with sweet fruits like mangoes, dried fruits, or fruit juice, believing you're making a healthier choice, take a closer look. Your intentions are good, but your metabolism needs something different now. Lower sugar, slower absorption, more balance. Start reading labels. Pay attention to how you feel after eating, especially that post-meal slump, heavy heartbeat, or ankle swelling. Those signs aren't just part of aging. They may be signals your heart is sending, asking for help. The point isn't to strip joy from your meals. It's to give your heart the support it needs to keep going strong. Sometimes that means choosing the berry over the mango, the pear over the dried fruit, the small, steady release of nutrients instead of the sugar wave. Because after 60, even the most innocent indulgence can become a metabolic trap, and your heart, already navigating years of effort, stress, and survival, deserves better than that. Let's move now to a fruit that's larger, juicier, and often celebrated for hydration, but can quietly flood your system with sugar, potassium, and fluid. For hearts over 60, it's not just sweet, it's overwhelming. Watermelon brings with it a wave of nostalgia. It's the fruit of summer picnics, backyard barbecues, and 4th of July celebrations. It's light, juicy, and refreshing, the kind of food that feels innocent. For many seniors, especially those trying to avoid sugary desserts or salty snacks, a bowl of watermelon seems like a healthy, heart-smart choice. But what few people realize is that watermelon, when eaten in large quantities, can place unexpected stress on an aging heart, especially when medications and kidney function are already in play. Watermelon is more than 90% water. That sounds like a good thing, particularly for older adults trying to stay hydrated. It's also low in calories and easy to chew, two things that make it even more appealing. But the very traits that make it seem so safe can, in the wrong context, create a perfect storm. You see, watermelon is a triple threat: high in natural sugar, rich in potassium, and capable of shifting the body's fluid balance so dramatically that your heart and kidneys can't always keep up. I'll never forget one of my patients, Mrs. Leah Cartwright, an 81-year-old retired librarian from Kansas. She came to see me in late August, after weeks of hot weather had left her feeling drained. Her ankles were swollen. Her breath was short. She described her heart as feeling heavy whenever she walked. Her labs showed borderline high potassium, low sodium, and a blood pressure that had become difficult to manage. But she was proud of her diet. "No ice cream for me, doctor," she told me with a smile. Just big bowls of watermelon morning and night. It's been so hot, I figured it was the healthiest way to cool off. She wasn't being careless. She was doing what she believed was best. But what she didn't realize was that each time she filled her bowl, she was flooding her system with sugar, potassium, and fluid faster than her aging kidneys could clear it, and faster than her medications could adjust. The result? Her heart was struggling to maintain rhythm, her blood vessels were overloaded, and her symptoms were only getting worse. 1 cup of watermelon contains about 170 milligrams of potassium and 9 grams of sugar. That might not sound alarming on its own, but most seniors don't stop at 1 cup. On hot days, they eat 2, 3, even 4 cups in a single sitting. And when your kidneys are slower, and you're on blood pressure medications, especially ACE inhibitors, beta blockers, or diuretics, those numbers matter more than ever. The sudden intake of potassium can disrupt the balance of electrolytes in the blood. The flood of water can dilute sodium levels. And the sugar, though natural, can spike blood glucose and trigger a cascade of hormonal shifts. All of this places a heavy load on your cardiovascular system, particularly your heart, which is already working harder in the heat. After we adjusted Mrs. Cartwright's diet, limiting her watermelon to a small cup a day, and encouraging other hydration strategies, her symptoms eased within a week. Her ankles slimmed, her energy returned. Her heart no longer felt burdened. "I never would have guessed," she told me. "I thought I was making the safest choice on the table." And that's the hardest part. Watermelon doesn't taste dangerous. It doesn't raise red flags like chips or cookies. But for seniors, especially those on medication or with borderline kidney function, it can quietly tip the balance in the wrong direction. The consequences aren't immediate. They build, slowly, silently, until one day your body can't compensate. It's important to understand, the issue isn't the watermelon itself, it's the quantity, it's the timing, it's the context of your medications and your current health status. When your body was younger, it could handle sudden shifts in fluid and sugar. Now, even small overloads can create real consequences. If you're reaching for watermelon every day during warm weather, especially in large amounts, pay attention. Are your ankles swelling more than usual? Do you feel tired after eating? Are you noticing heart palpitations or shortness of breath? These signs may not be random. They may be your body telling you it's time to pause. Talk to your doctor about your diet, especially if you're on medications for heart failure, blood pressure, or kidney disease. Ask if it's safe to eat high-potassium fruits regularly. And when you do enjoy watermelon, pair it with protein or fiber to slow its absorption and limit how much you eat in one sitting. Hydration is important, but it must be done wisely. Watermelon, despite its wholesome image, can be too much of a good thing. And in an aging body, that overload doesn't always announce itself with warning signs. It arrives quietly, often disguised as fatigue, swelling, or dizziness. You've worked hard to protect your heart. You've made sacrifices, formed better habits, and tried to stay informed. Don't let a bowl of fruit undo that progress simply because it seems harmless. Because the truth is, after 60, nothing is harmless until you understand how your body handles it now, not how it used to. Now that we've explored the risks of water-heavy fruits, let's take a look at something even more concentrated. Small, sweet, and often called nature's candy. These next fruits may be even more deceptive. They sit in your pantry, often tucked away in a tidy container: raisins, apricots, prunes, dates. Small, wrinkled, and sweet, they've been marketed for years as healthy snacks. And in moderation, for the right person, they can be. But for adults, over 60, dried fruits may not be the guilt-free treat you believe they are. In fact, they may be adding hidden stress to your heart, your blood sugar, and your digestive system without you ever noticing the damage. Here's the challenge with dried fruit. What you see is not what you get. A single dried apricot might look like a harmless bite, but it represents an entire apricot with the water removed, leaving behind concentrated sugar and nutrients that your aging body may no longer process efficiently. When you eat a handful, you're not eating a few fruits. You're eating the sugar equivalent of several whole pieces of fruit in a condensed, rapidly absorbed form. And that matters, especially when your heart and kidneys are already working hard to keep you balanced. I remember Mr. Edward Latham, a 72-year-old patient of mine who had recently embraced a new diet to control his cholesterol and blood pressure. He proudly told me, "I've cut out candy. No more cookies. I snack on prunes and dates now, just a few every afternoon." But when he came in with complaints of fatigue, dizziness, and bloating, his lab work told a different story. His blood sugar was spiking throughout the day. His potassium levels were creeping up, and his blood pressure, despite medication, was more erratic than ever. The culprit? His so-called healthy snacks. Dried fruits are high in natural sugars, fructose and glucose, that are rapidly absorbed when the fiber is diminished and the water content removed. Without the volume of fresh fruit to slow digestion, the sugar enters your bloodstream quickly, triggering insulin spikes and crashes that can confuse your metabolism. For someone with prediabetes or insulin resistance, a common condition in older adults, this can lead to chronic fatigue, irritability, or even long-term complications. But the sugar isn't the only concern. Many dried fruits are also high in potassium, particularly prunes and apricots. And for seniors on ACE inhibitors, Arkansas bees, or potassium-sparing medications, that added potassium can push your levels too high. This might not cause immediate symptoms, but over time, you may notice irregular heart rhythms, muscle weakness, or even changes in mental clarity. It's a slow buildup, and one that's easy to overlook if no one has warned you. And then there's the issue of digestion. As we age, our gut slows down. Motility decreases. Enzymes and stomach acid may not work as efficiently. Dried fruit, especially when eaten quickly or in large amounts, can ferment in the gut, leading to bloating, gas, and discomfort. I've had patients tell me they thought their digestive troubles were just part of aging, when in fact, it was that handful of dried figs each night before bed. None of this means dried fruit is evil, but it does mean it must be treated with the same caution you'd give to any high-sugar, high-potassium food, especially if you're on medication or managing chronic conditions. What your body once tolerated easily can now become a source of imbalance. And because dried fruit feels natural, it slips under the radar. If you enjoy dried fruit, consider portion control. 1 or 2 small pieces, paired with protein or healthy fat, may be fine for your system. But avoid the common trap of grazing, keeping a container nearby, nibbling mindlessly while reading or watching television. That's how a few prunes becomes a dozen. That's how your body ends up fighting the consequences without you realizing the source. And pay attention to packaged varieties. Many dried fruits are preserved with sulfites, which can irritate the digestive system or trigger respiratory symptoms in sensitive individuals. Others are coated in added sugar, turning them into more of a dessert than a fruit. Read labels. Choose unsweetened, unsulfured options. And always ask your doctor whether your current medications make you more vulnerable to potassium or sugar overload. Mrs. Beverly Parks, a former teacher and one of my longtime patients, once told me, "I thought giving up cookies and switching to raisins was a smart move, but I felt worse, not better." When we reviewed her diet, it became clear her blood sugar was being spiked by the very snack she thought was helping. We swapped her dried fruit for small portions of fresh pear and added a few almonds to balance the meal. Her energy returned, her glucose stabilized, and she no longer felt guilty about her choices. That's the message here. It's not about restriction, it's about adaptation. Your body is different now. It deserves snacks that support, not stress, its systems. Dried fruit isn't a villain, but it's not a free pass either. Treat it like you would a piece of dark chocolate or a glass of wine. Enjoyable, in the right amount, and only when it works for your body, not against it. Let's move on now to a form of fruit that feels even more wholesome: juice. Cold, colorful, and often labeled 100% natural, fruit juice is a staple in many senior diets. But it may be one of the most deceptive health foods of all. There's something comforting about a glass of fruit juice in the morning. For many older adults, it feels like a small act of self-care, natural, wholesome, and a familiar part of a healthy breakfast. Orange juice with breakfast, apple juice at lunch, maybe even a splash of grape juice before bed. The labels say 100% juice, and the ingredients list shows nothing but fruit. So what's the harm? The harm is in what's missing and what happens once it hits your bloodstream. Fruit juice is often seen as a healthier alternative to soda or other sugary drinks. And for a long time, that belief went unchallenged. After all, it comes from fruit. It contains vitamins. It's easy on the stomach. But what many people don't realize, especially those over 60, is that fruit juice is essentially a high-speed delivery system for sugar. The fiber that slows digestion, balances blood sugar, and supports your gut? Gone. The bulk and water content that makes whole fruit filling? Removed. What remains is a concentrated dose of fructose and glucose, absorbed rapidly and often in large quantities. I had a patient, Mr. Richard Barlow, a 68-year-old former teacher who came to me after months of unexplained fatigue and high blood pressure. He was watching his salt intake, walking every evening, and had even lost weight. But his blood sugar and triglycerides were climbing. When I asked about his diet, he proudly listed all the junk he'd eliminated. No soda, no cake, no candy, just healthy stuff. My weakness is juice. I drink a big glass of orange juice every morning and a smaller glass of apple juice with dinner. What he didn't know is that a typical 8-ounce glass of orange juice contains about 25 grams of sugar, the equivalent of 6 teaspoons. Apple juice? Even higher. Without fiber to slow the process, that sugar rushes into the bloodstream, spiking insulin and putting stress on the pancreas. For someone with prediabetes or insulin resistance, a condition that affects nearly half of all adults over 60, that spike can quietly accelerate the journey toward diabetes, inflammation, and vascular damage. But it's not just blood sugar. Fruit juice can also disrupt blood pressure and fluid balance. Many seniors take medications like beta blockers, ACE inhibitors, or diuretics to manage their heart health. When you introduce a sugary liquid that acts quickly on your system, you create fluctuations in blood sugar and electrolytes that can interfere with those medications. The result? Dizziness, fatigue, swelling, or a racing heartbeat. It's not just theory, it's happening every day. I've had patients who were managing their heart failure well until summer came and they began drinking more juice to stay hydrated. Within weeks, they were short of breath, retaining fluid, and wondering what had gone wrong. The answer was in their refrigerator door. Juice is deceptive because it feels light, it feels natural. But when you strip a fruit of its pulp, fiber, and texture, you create something fundamentally different from whole food. It no longer behaves like fruit in your body. It behaves like sugar water with a few vitamins attached. Mrs. Eileen Harper, a 73-year-old former nurse, once told me, "I always thought juice was safer than soda, but it hits me harder now." And she was right. At her age, her metabolism had slowed, her kidney function had declined slightly, and her blood pressure medications made her more sensitive to rapid shifts in blood volume and glucose. A single glass of grape juice would leave her lightheaded and bloated within an hour. Once we limited juice to a rare occasion and focused on whole fruit, her symptoms resolved. She didn't need a prescription. She needed better information. If you're over 60 and still drinking juice regularly, especially more than 4 ounces at a time, it's time to reconsider. Think about how your body has changed. Slower digestion, reduced insulin sensitivity, a greater need for balance. Juice doesn't support those needs. it works against them. And yes, even homemade juice poses risks. Freshly squeezed means fresh sugar, no preservatives, but no fiber either. Blended smoothies can be safer if they include whole fruit and fiber-rich ingredients, but even then, portion control is critical. The goal isn't to strip joy from your meals. It's to protect the engine that's been carrying you for decades: your heart, your blood vessels, your metabolism. If you love juice, consider using it as a flavor, not a drink. A splash in sparkling water, a tablespoon in a vinaigrette, but not a full glass, and not every day. Whole fruit is your friend. An orange takes time to peel and chew. A glass of juice takes seconds to swallow and delivers a sugar load your body may no longer tolerate. That difference in speed makes all the difference in outcome. You've worked hard to care for yourself. You've made sacrifices, developed routines, taken your medications. Don't let a habit that once seemed harmless create new challenges now. Because when it comes to fruit juice, it's not about moderation, it's about awareness. Your heart deserves that much. Next, we'll look at a fruit that wears a crown and carries an aura of health: vibrant, exotic, and increasingly popular among health-conscious adults. But for older hearts, it may not be as innocent as it looks. Pomegranate has become a symbol of health in recent years. Its ruby red seeds are packed with antioxidants. Its juice fills the shelves of natural food stores. And everywhere you look, magazines, blogs, even doctors' offices, you see it hailed as a superfood. For many older adults trying to eat clean and fight aging, pomegranate feels like the perfect choice. But beneath its royal image lies a reality few people understand. This fruit can interfere with your medications. And after 60, that interference can quietly lead your heart into danger. Let's start with what makes pomegranate so appealing. It's rich in polyphenols, plant compounds believed to protect against oxidative stress and inflammation. That's good. It has vitamin C, potassium, and fiber when eaten as whole seeds. Also good. But when pomegranate is turned into juicer, consumed in large amount, it begins to behave less like a fruit and more like a pharmacological agent. It can inhibit enzymes in the liver that are responsible for breaking down certain drugs. And just like grapefruit, it can increase the concentration of those drugs in your bloodstream, sometimes to risky levels. I remember Mr. Franklin Ortiz, a 70-year-old retired postal worker. He had a long history of high blood pressure and had recently added a statin to manage his cholesterol. Eager to avoid more medications, he turned to diet. Pomegranate juice every day, he told me proudly. It's natural. It's good for the heart. I read it lowers cholesterol. But a few weeks later, he was in the emergency room dizzy, sweating, heart racing. His statin level had doubled. His blood pressure was unstable. What happened? His liver's ability to clear the medication had been compromised. We traced it back to the pomegranate juice owned full glass every morning, which was inhibiting the same liver enzyme, CYP3A4, that grapefruit affects. Most people don't associate pomegranate with risk. It's marketed as a gentle, ancient remedy. But age changes the way your body handles compounds, especially when medications are involved. If you're on drugs like statins, calcium channel blockers, or blood thinners, your system depends on precise clearance. When a fruit, even a healthy one, blocks that pathway, the drug builds up, slowly, silently, until it overwhelms your heart or your liver. The risk is especially high with juice, which is more concentrated and rapidly absorbed. Unlike eating the seeds, which take time to chew and contain fiber that slows digestion, juice delivers a strong dose of bioactive compounds all at once. And for older adults, that sudden influx can disrupt the balance your body and medications work so hard to maintain. But this isn't just about liver enzymes. Pomegranate also contains a significant amount of potassium. If you're already on medications that raise potassium, or if your kidney function has declined with age, This fruit can push your levels higher than your heart can tolerate. It doesn't happen immediately. It builds over time, hidden behind the belief that you're doing something good for yourself. Mrs. Gladys Montgomery, an 82-year-old former pianist, came to me complaining of heart flutters and muscle cramps. Her potassium was high, and her blood pressure had been erratic despite a stable dose of medication. We reviewed her diet, and there it was. Every afternoon, she snacked on pomegranate seeds by the bowlful. "They make me feel fancy," she said with a laugh. But they were interfering with her medications and altering her electrolyte balance. Once we reduced her intake and adjusted her meds, her symptoms vanished. The lesson isn't to fear pomegranate. It's to understand its strength. After 60, even health foods can act like drugs, interacting with your prescriptions, overwhelming your system, or masking symptoms until they become problems. You wouldn't take a second dose of your medication without asking your doctor. But when you add something like pomegranate to your daily routine, that's exactly what might be happening, just without the label. So what should you do? First, talk to your doctor or pharmacist before adding pomegranate juice or large amounts of the seeds to your diet, especially if you're on heart, blood pressure, or cholesterol medications. Ask whether it affects drug metabolism. Be specific. Don't assume that natural equals safe. Second, focus on moderation. A small sprinkle of seeds on a salad once in a while is different from a full glass of juice every morning. If you enjoy the fruit, pair it with a meal and watch for any unusual symptoms: fatigue, muscle cramps, dizziness, or irregular heartbeat. Finally, remember that your goal isn't just to eat well, it's to eat wisely. Your body at 70 doesn't react the same way it did at 40. That's not a failure, it's a fact. And respecting that fact means choosing foods that support your health now, not based on trends or headlines, but based on how your body works today. Next, we'll look at something many people rely on for convenience. It comes in neat packaging, lasts for months, and promises fruit without the mess. But inside those cans, your heart may face a different kind of threat altogether. ChatGPT said, "Dưới đây là phần 8. Canned fruit. Convenience at a cardiovascular cost." Được viết lại theo phong cách Dr. Henry. Mình sẽ đếm ký tự ở phần cuối để xác nhận. Part 8. Canned fruit. Convenience at a cardiovascular cost. Canned fruit is one of those pantry staples that feels safe. It's easy to store, quick to serve, and often marketed as a smart way to get more fruit into your diet. For older adults who may struggle with peeling or cutting fresh fruit, it seems like a practical solution. Pop the lid, pour into a bowl, and there you go. Peaches, pears, or fruit cocktail, ready in seconds. But that convenience can come at a hidden cost, especially for hearts over the age of 60. I've had many patients tell me, "It's just fruit, doctor. How bad can it be?" And in theory, fruit is good. But canned fruit is not just fruit. Most varieties are packed in syrup-light or heavy, and even those labeled "in juice" often contain added sugars or preservatives that change the way your body processes them. What's worse, these sugars don't come with the fiber and enzymes that fresh fruit offers. That changes everything. Take Mr. Harold Dawson, a 74-year-old former accountant. He came to my office with swelling in his legs and shortness of breath that had gradually worsened over the past few months. His heart function was stable, and his medications hadn't changed. But something was off. As we reviewed his diet, he mentioned that he'd started eating canned peaches every night, his favorite dessert from childhood. "They go down easy," he said, "and they feel better than cookies." But a quick look at the label told the story. 22 grams of added sugar in a single serving, and he was eating double that. When you eat sugar without fiber, like in syrup or juicite, enters your bloodstream fast. It triggers insulin release, causes blood sugar spikes, and if eaten repeatedly, contributes to weight gain, inflammation, and insulin resistance. For someone already managing blood pressure or on medications that affect fluid balance, this can push the body into overload. But sugar isn't the only problem. Canned fruit often contains added sodium as a preservative, especially in older brands. Sodium contributes to water retention, which strains the heart and raises blood pressure, particularly dangerous in seniors with borderline cardiovascular health. If your ankles are swelling, if your weight suddenly increases over a few days, or if you feel more breathless than usual, take a close look at your canned foods, including fruit. Then there's the issue of portion size. One small can might contain 2 or even 3 servings. But who eats just a few bites? Most people, especially when the fruit is soft and sweet, finish the whole can. That means you're not just consuming fruit. You're taking in excessive sugar, potential sodium, and a calorie load that adds up faster than you think. I had another patient, Mrs. Ellen Griffith, who was doing everything right by the book. She cooked at home, avoided fast food, and walked her dog twice a day. But her blood sugar was slowly rising, and she was beginning to feel exhausted after meals. She was puzzled. When we went through her food diary, she listed fruit for dessert every evening. What kind? Oh, just those little cups of fruit cocktails, she said. They're labeled healthy. Those little cups? They were packed in high fructose corn syrup. We switched her to whole fruit sliced apples with cinnamon, small berries, or half a banana with peanut butter. Her energy returned, her blood sugar stabilized, and perhaps most importantly, her confidence grew. I didn't realize fruit could be tricky, she told me. I thought if it had peaches on the label, I was doing the right thing. That's the hard part. Canned fruit feels like the right thing. And for some seniors, it may be the only affordable or accessible option. But if you're over 60 and trying to manage heart health, blood sugar, or kidney function, you need to be cautious. Read labels. Choose varieties packed in water or their own juice, with no added sugar. Rinse them before eating. Better yet, prepare small containers of fresh fruit in advance, so you have the same grab-and-go ease without the additives. It's not about avoiding fruit. It's about understanding what kind of fruit your heart and body can handle now. Aging doesn't mean giving up convenience. It means redefining it. True convenience is eating food that gives your body support, not stress. And as always, the key is awareness. When you see a can, think beyond the label. Ask what's inside, how it's preserved, and whether it supports your current health, not your childhood nostalgia. Now that we've looked at how processed versions of fruit can undermine your efforts, let's turn our attention to a surprising truth. Even the healthiest fruits, eaten in excess, can become a burden for an aging heart. The next danger isn't in the fruit itself. It's in how much and how often we eat it. Let me say this as clearly as I can. Fruit is not your enemy. It never was. What matters, especially after 60, is not whether you eat fruit, but how you eat it. The key is no longer simply what's healthy in general, but what's healthy for your current body, your current medications, and your current stage of life. Over the years, I've seen many patients make the same quiet mistake. They try their best. They give up processed snacks. They eat more whole foods. And in that effort to clean up their diet, they often turn to fruit as a safe haven. A bowl of grapes instead of cookies, a banana instead of bread, juice instead of soda. It feels like progress. And for a while, it is. But over time, especially when portion sizes grow and medications come into play, what once seemed helpful can slowly cause new problems. This is the tightrope walk of aging. Your intentions remain strong, but your body becomes more fragile. You may not feel the impact right away. The sugar spikes, the potassium buildup, the strain on your kidneys or heart, they're subtle at first. But left unaddressed, they can lead to fatigue, swelling, heart rhythm issues, and more. And because you believe you're eating healthy, you may never suspect fruit is playing a role. But fear doesn't serve you either. Avoiding all fruit would be a mistake nutritionally and emotionally. Fruit brings joy, flavor, and important nutrients. The goal isn't fear, it's wisdom. And wisdom starts with understanding a few truths. First, your body has changed. What you could eat freely at the 30th of may now require moderation. Your metabolism has slowed. Your kidneys are less efficient. Your blood sugar may rise more easily. None of that is your fault. It's biology. And biology rewards awareness, not guilt. Second, your medications matter. Blood pressure pills, heart meds, diuretics, diabetes treatments, all of them interact with how your body handles sugar, potassium, and fluid. Some fruits, like grapefruit or pomegranate, may interfere directly with how your liver processes medications. Others, like bananas or dried fruits, may quietly raise potassium to unsafe levels. If you're on medication, fruit choices must be intentional. Third, not all fruits are equal. Berries, apples, pears, and citrus, in whole form, tend to have lower glycemic loads. They digest more slowly, provide valuable fiber, and support heart health without overloading the system. On the other hand, tropical fruits, dried fruits, fruit juice, and canned varieties can overwhelm an aging body, especially when eaten in large quantities or alone. And finally, how you eat fruit matters just as much as what you eat. Timing, pairing, and portion size are everything. Eat fruit with protein or healthy fat. Choose whole over juiced. Limit servings to 1-2 cups per day. Spread out and customize to your needs. Most importantly, listen to your body. If you feel tired after meals, experience unusual swelling, or notice blood sugar changes, don't dismiss it. Your body is trying to communicate. I had a patient, Mr. Leon Matthews, age 77, who summed it up beautifully after we adjusted his diet. He'd been overwhelmed by information, unsure what to trust. But once we simplified his approach, he looked at me and said, "I didn't need a new diet. I needed a new way of seeing food. That's it. That's the shift." So here's what I want for you. Not fear, not restriction, but clarity. Know your fruits. Know your medications. Know your numbers. Keep a simple journal if it helps. And if something doesn't feel right, speak up. Ask your doctor or pharmacist how fruit may be interacting with your treatments. Let your care be guided by knowledge, not assumptions. Because after 60, your heart deserves every advantage. And that means food that works with your body, not against it. Fruit is a gift. But like any gift, it must be used wisely. In the next section, I'll share a few final words to help you move forward with confidence and no confusiones. You navigate your journey toward better health. If you've come this far, I want to pause and thank you not just for reading, but for caring. It takes humility to reconsider something as basic as fruit. It takes strength to question lifelong habits. And it takes courage to change what's familiar, especially when those changes come later in life. You're not here because you failed. You're here because you want to keep going stronger, smarter, and better equipped for the years ahead. And that mindset, that willingness to adapt, is exactly what helps people live not just longer, but better. By now, you've seen how something as seemingly simple as fruit can play a complex role in your health. You've learned that natural sugar is still sugar. That potassium, while vital, can overwhelm when your kidneys slow down. That juice can act more like soda. That healthy choices, when made without context, can backfire. But you've also learned something else, something more important. You are still in control. Every day offers a fresh opportunity to adjust, to listen to your body, and to make decisions that match the reality of where you are, now not where you were 20 years ago. That shift in perspective is what separates regret from resilience. And you, by reading this, are choosing resilience. I'm not asking you to overhaul your life overnight. In fact, I'd advise against it. What works best at this stage of life is gentle, changes small, consistent steps that feel manageable and kind. Maybe today that means swapping a fruit juice for a whole orange. Maybe it means cutting your banana in half. Maybe it's simply taking a closer look at your medications and asking your doctor the right questions. Whatever it is, do it with compassion. Aging is not a failure. It's a privilege. Your body may need more care now, more attention, more nuance. But that care pays off. Every thoughtful choice you make now protects the energy you'll have tomorrow, the clarity you'll bring to your relationships, and the confidence you'll feel when your body begins to trust you again. You don't have to get everything right. You just have to get curious. Stay informed, ask better questions, and surround yourself with guidance rooted in real science, not fads or fear. I've spent over 3 decades walking alongside people just like you, and what I know for sure is this: the ones who thrive into their 70s, 80s, and beyond are not those who chase perfection. They are the ones who stay open, who adapt, who are willing to keep learning, even when the lessons are inconvenient. So here's my invitation to you. Start small. Stay steady. Don't demonize fruit, but don't idealize it either. Use it wisely. Make it part of a balanced, thoughtful plate. And most importantly, remember that your health is not a project to perfect. It's a relationship to nurture. Every meal is a chance to listen, to learn, and to love the body that has carried you this far. Thank you for trusting me with your time. May your choices from here on bring you strength, peace, and renewed energy. Your journey isn't over. It's evolving. And you're not alone.